April 13th, 1945. The war was days from ending. Most soldiers believed the killing was finally over. They were wrong. On a quiet country road near the ancient German town of Gardelegen, two American scouts from the U.S. 102nd Infantry Division saw smoke rising from a lone building in a field. It looked like a barn. At first, they thought it was nothing. Then the wind shifted, and the smell reached them. Not burning wood, not oil, but something far worse. A sweet, sickening smell every soldier recognized. The smell of burning flesh. The scouts slowed their jeep and grabbed their rifles. They moved toward the barn carefully. The doors were locked from the outside. Smoke leaked through the cracks in the wooden walls. One scout leaned in and looked through a gap. He dropped his rifle. He fell to his knees, and he vomited. Inside the barn were more than 1,000 human beings, some already dead, some still alive, all burned. They were frozen in the positions they died in, huddled together, crouched, arms wrapped around one another, trying to escape flames that had consumed the air itself. The scout reached for his radio. His voice shook. "Base, this is Scout Team 2. Send everyone. Send the doctors. Send the general. They burned them. They burned them all alive." When American forces arrived, shock turned into something colder. Rage. Major General Frank Keating stood before the smoking ruins of the Eisenschnebe barn. He looked at the bodies. He looked at the nearby German town, its civilians pretending nothing had happened. And he made a promise. "You will not ignore this. You will not forget this. You will carry every single body with your bare hands." This is the true story of the Gardelegen Massacre, the final mass murder committed by the SS, and the day the U.S. Army delivered a punishment so severe the town still remembers it 80 years later. To understand why over 1,000 men died in a barn, we have to go back 48 hours. By April 1945, Nazi Germany was collapsing. Allied armies were closing in from every direction. The SS still controlled thousands of slave laborers, resistance fighters, Jews, held in camps like Dora Mittelbau. And they had orders. No prisoner was to fall into Allied hands alive. They couldn't shoot them all. There were too many. They couldn't gas them. The gas chambers were far away. So they marched them. Thousands of starving men were forced onto death marches. If they stopped, they were shot. If they fell, they were shot. By April 13th, the column reached Gardelegen. The prisoners were exhausted. Many had typhus. They could not take another step. The local SS commander looked at them. He looked at the map. The Americans were less than 10 miles away. He couldn't move the prisoners, and he couldn't release them. So he chose a solution, a cheap solution, a barn and a box of matches. The Eisenschnebe barn was a large masonry building with a red-tiled roof. The SS told the prisoners they could rest there. There was straw to sleep on. For men who hadn't slept in weeks, it sounded like mercy. They limped inside. Hundreds, then 1,000. Packed shoulder to shoulder. But as they settled into the straw, they noticed something wrong. It was wet. It smelled of chemicals. Gasoline. Then the doors slammed shut. Metal bars locked into place. Panic exploded. The prisoners screamed. They pounded on the doors. "Please, let us out. We are human beings." Outside, SS guards laughed. They were joined by members of the local militia and Hitler Youth. At 7 p.m., the order was given. Gasoline-soaked rags were lit, thrown through the ventilation openings. The straw ignited instantly. Inside, the world turned orange. The screams were heard miles away. Men rushed the doors, but the doors held. Others climbed over bodies trying to reach high windows. As their heads appeared, guards shot them. Some tried to dig. With bare hands, they clawed at the earth beneath the stone foundation. Their fingernails tore off. Anyone who managed to breathe was shot. The fire burned for hours. Eventually, the screaming stopped. More than 1,000 men were gone. The next morning, the SS realized another problem. The Americans were coming faster than expected. They ordered the evidence destroyed. Local civilians were brought in. They didn't protest. They didn't cry. They brought shovels. They dragged charred bodies from the barn. They dug mass graves beside it. By the afternoon of April 14th, American jeeps appeared on the horizon. The SS fled. The civilians washed their hands. They went home. They sat down to dinner. They left the bodies behind. When the 102nd Infantry Division arrived, hardened combat veterans wept openly. Bodies lay half buried, others still inside the barn. Some victims knelt in prayer. Others clutched one another. 7 men survived. They crawled out from beneath the dead. They pointed toward the town. They helped, they said. General Keating entered Gardelegen. He saw white surrender flags hanging from windows, civilians smiling at American tanks, asking for chocolate. Keating exploded. He declared martial law. He ordered every able-bodied man, every prominent citizen, every Nazi Party member to report to the barn. They arrived in suits and work clothes, carrying shovels and white crosses. They were forced to carry the bodies, to dig individual graves. No mass graves, 1 cross for every victim. They worked until their hands bled, until they collapsed. American soldiers stood guard, silent, judging. When it was finished, Keating addressed the town. "You are told you have been liberated," he said, "but you are not liberated from the guilt of this crime." A sign was erected. It still stands today. Here lie over 1,000 prisoners murdered by their captors. They were buried by the citizens of Gardelegen, who are charged with the responsibility that these graves shall never be forgotten. The SS commander who ordered the massacre escaped. He changed his name, lived freely, died in 1994, unpunished. The civilians carried the burden instead. The Gardelegen massacre is rarely discussed, but it stands as a warning, because sometimes the deadliest weapon of all is silence.